Mr. Speaker, let me begin by quoting the words of Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan, the famous naval strategist, who wrote, and I quote, "When the sea not only borders or surrounds, but also separates a country into two or more parts, control of the sea is not only desirable, but vitally necessary. Such a physical condition either gives birth and strength to sea power or makes the country powerless," unquote. Mahan made this assertion in his treatise entitled "The Influence of Sea Power Upon History" in 1890. From a distant past, Mahan speaks to us today with relevance as we face external threats to our control over the West Philippine Sea and as we grapple on how we can attain dominance over our vast maritime areas. Mr. Speaker, last May 20, 2025, the Philippine Navy celebrated its 127th anniversary. One of the highlights of the celebration was the commissioning of BRP Miguel Malvar, the newest and most modern guided missile frigate of the Philippine Navy. Let me greet the men and women of the Philippine Navy, led by the flag officer in command, Vice Admiral Jose Maria Ambrosio Ezpeleta, on the occasion of their anniversary, and extend my congratulations for the significant improvements that the Navy has attained in terms of its capabilities and operational readiness. The Philippine Navy is no longer a World War II Navy with a fleet of vintage ships. It is now a 21st century Navy that has started to acquire a fleet of modern warships. However, much still needs to be done to upgrade our Philippine Navy into a truly modern and credible deterrent force that is capable of securing our maritime zones and denying to any foreign power access to our waters. Mr. Speaker, I therefore rise on a question of personal and collective privilege to call for urgent and decisive action to build up and strengthen our naval capabilities in order to protect and secure the vast maritime areas of our archipelagic nation as defined in Article 1, Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution, as elucidated in Republic Act No. 12064, or an act declaring the maritime zones under the jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines, and as recognized by international law, particularly the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. The total maritime areas of the Philippines, including our exclusive economic zones, is approximately 2.2 million square kilometers, significantly larger than the total land area of the country, which is 300,000 square kilometers. Our archipelago is composed of 7,641 islands with a coastline of 36,389 kilometers. We are indeed a maritime nation. Our exclusive economic zone is rich in marine life and aquatic resources, which can address the food security needs of our people. It can contribute to the development of the domestic fishing industry and provide livelihood to millions of our fisher folk. It is also believed that the seabed and subsoil within our exclusive economic zone contain mineral resources such as oil and natural gas, and it also offers potential for harnessing wind and tidal power, thus contributing to our nation's energy security. However, we can explore, exploit, utilize, and enjoy the natural and mineral resources in our country, in our waters, only if we have the means and capability of establishing control and dominance over our country's maritime zones. The build-up of our naval power is therefore a matter of transcendental importance for our nation. In a maritime nation such as ours, a strong navy is an imperative for national security, national economic development, and for the nation's survival. Mr. Speaker, in recent years, we have been at the receiving end of the aggressive and hostile acts of the Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia against our vessels right in our maritime areas. These include the harassment of our sea forces performing rotation and resupply missions on our troops at BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal through dangerous maneuvers, the pointing of military-grade laser, and the use of water cannons on our ships, the employment of deafening acoustic device, and other acts of harassment that endanger the lives of our service members. Civilian vessels carrying Filipino scientists out to conduct marine research at Sandy Cay were subjected to aggressive acts and interference by the Chinese Coast Guard. All of these hostile acts are properly documented and have been the subject of numerous diplomatic protests. Filipino fishermen that ventured near Scarborough Shoal within our exclusive economic zone, as affirmed in the July 12, 2016 arbitral ruling, were on certain occasions subjected to harassment and prevented from pursuing their livelihood in their traditional fishing grounds by Chinese maritime forces. Mr. Speaker, our inability to establish dominance in our maritime areas because of the inadequacy of our naval capabilities has invited acts of aggression perpetrated by a foreign power against our forces in our own waters, notably in the West Philippine Sea. Our sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction over our maritime zones are therefore vulnerable to external challenges. As Admiral Mahan put it, the absence of sea power renders a country powerless. Mr. Speaker, we are now reaping the results of our decades of failure to adequately invest in building a modern naval force with the capability to secure our waters and assert our sovereignty and sovereign rights in our maritime areas. We have enacted the Armed Forces Modernization Law, but the annual budgetary allocation that is required to fund the various projects to upgrade the capabilities of the armed forces, particularly the Navy, has always fallen short. Mr. Speaker, this is not an ideal situation in an archipelagic nation. A professor at the U.S. Naval Academy and an author of essays on maritime strategies, Clark G. Reynolds, wrote that for maritime nations, the Navy has been the strategic arm of the nation's defensive structure and dominates the defensive policies of the government. Mr. Speaker, I therefore issue this appeal to the political departments of our government, to the executive department, and to the legislative department to give priority to the upgrading of the capabilities of the Philippine Navy. A few weeks from now, after the State of the Nation address of the President, he will submit to the 20th Congress the National Expenditure Program for fiscal year 2026. I urge the executive branch, through the Development Budget Coordinating Committee or DBCC, to set a higher ceiling for projects geared towards the upgrading of our naval capabilities and the modernization of our naval forces. A higher budgetary outlay for naval modernization will enable the Philippine Navy to acquire additional guided missile frigates and other warships, including submarines, shore-based anti-ship and air defense missile systems, and command and control and surveillance systems. It will enable the Philippine Navy to completely equip our warships with the missile armaments and sensors that are necessary to make them mission capable. Our first two missile frigates, the BRP Jose Rizal and BRP Antonio Luna, are not yet completely fitted with some of the specified weapons such as the vertical launch system and close-in weapon system 5 years after their delivery. A higher budgetary outlay for the Philippine Navy will further enable it to construct additional naval operating bases and stations in strategic areas of the country in order to effectively secure our archipelagic sea lanes and give it the capability to deploy its assets rapidly in the event of a conflict at sea. Furthermore, a bigger allocation for the Navy can be utilized to hire additional officers and sailors to man the new warships that will be delivered, train its men and women in modern naval combat, and improve their overall well-being. Mr. Speaker, I was invited by Vice Admiral Ezpeleta at the 127th anniversary of the Philippine Navy held at Naval Operating Base Subic, with President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as a guest of honor. After BRP Miguel Malvar, FFG-06, was formally commissioned by the Commander-in-Chief, I was given a tour of the warship by Navy officers. They explained to me the range of capabilities of our newest guided missile frigate, and it was impressive. This October, another Malvar-class frigate will be delivered to the Philippine Navy, the future BRP Diego Silang. The Malvar-class warships are more advanced and capable than the Rizal-class frigates that were earlier acquired by the Navy. I was able to meet several senior and junior naval officers, some of whom are assigned at BRP Miguel Malvar, and I was impressed with their professionalism, competence, and deep sense of duty. That is why, Mr. Speaker, I believe that if we will give our Navy the proper and necessary support, they will be able to guard our maritime zones, uphold our nation's sovereignty, preserve our territorial integrity, and make our republic safe and secure. I urge the Department of National Defense and the Armed Forces of the Philippines to propose a higher allocation for naval capability upgrading projects. I appeal to DBCC to approve a higher budget proposal of the DND and AFP for naval modernization. I hope the incoming 20th Congress will be fully supportive of projects that will improve the capabilities of the Philippine Navy. Mr. Speaker, building a modern and capable Navy cannot be done overnight, but we have to act now with full speed in the light of the threats that we are currently facing in our maritime zones and the potential of a full-blown conflict in the East Asian region. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress that spending for naval modernization should not be viewed as a financial burden on the part of the government. With control and dominance over our maritime zones because of a strong naval force, we can fully enjoy the utilization of the marine and mineral resources in our maritime areas, thereby addressing our food and energy security requirements. Investing in a naval buildup is therefore investing not only in national security, but in national economic development as well. In other words, building a strong Navy and attaining sea power is an essential element in building a strong, stable, and prosperous nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.